This is the sixth video of series Chess Opening Theories and part 1 of Queen's Gambit Decline, and here I will show you about the 5 variations of Queen's Gambit Decline theory. Okay, so let's first look at the orthodox variation. So it starts with the move pawn to d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, knight f6, bishop to g5, bishop e7, e3, castles, knight f3, knight b d7, then rook to c1, pawn c6, bishop d3, pawn takes, bishop takes, knight to d5, then bishop takes, queen takes, castling by white, then knight takes c3, rook takes, pawn to e5, de5, ne5, ne5, queen e5, lot of exchanges, then pawn to f4, queen e4, queen e2, bishop f5, bishop to d3 and queen to e6. Okay, so this is the first variation. This is orthodox variation. Here you can already see like this is the weakness for the white, the pawn, the e3 pawn. Also at the same time, this will work as a potential, you can say, pawn to gain space in the center. Okay, so in terms of space, white is good, central space white is having, but at the same time this is the weakness. Okay, and this is going to be very dynamic. Lots of games have been played from this positions with all the three results, that is win, win for white, win for black and draw. And you can play this opening if you are a solid player. You can go into this line and you can play this orthodox variation. And if you are starting the queen's gambit, so I would recommend you that you should start with this orthodox variation. Okay, so now let's look at the second variation. So now let's look at the second line in the orthodox variation only. So again, orthodox starts with the move pawn to d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, bishop e7, pawn to e3, then castles, knight f3, knight b d7, rook to c1, pawn c6, bishop d3, dc4, bishop c4, knight d5, bishop takes, queen takes. And in the first variation, the move played was castle, but here the move that we are going to play is knight to e4. Okay, then it continues with queen b6 check, then queen d2, then queen takes, king takes, rook to d8, rook h d1, knight 5 to f6, then after knight takes, you can see already this is going into the end game with no queens on the board. So if you feel that your end game is very nice and you are more confident about your end game, so I would recommend you to go for this line in the orthodox variation when you are playing queen's gambit decline. Okay, and from here this position is again equal. All the three results are possible depending on the skill of your play. Okay, so now let's go back and now let's look at the third variation. Okay, so this third variation is known as Petrosian variation. Okay, so let's see how it goes. It starts with the move pawn to d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, bishop e7, pawn e3, castles, knight f3, and in the orthodox we have seen the move knight b to d7, but here it starts with pawn to h6, then bishop takes the knight, then bishop takes, rook c1, pawn c6, then bishop to d3, knight d7, castling by white, dc4, bishop c4, pawn to e5, h3, then ed4, ed4, knight b6, bishop to b3, rook e8, rook to e1. And now see this is a very dynamic opening. Okay, if you are the player who likes to play a lot of dynamic moves and a lot of interesting lines and interesting variations, so this is the perfect for you. Here you can see white is having a iqp means isolated queen pawn. Okay, so this pawn is doing it. It is a, you can say, in the terms of dynamic strength, it is a asset for white, but in the long term this could prove at as a weakness because it's an isolated pawn. But what good things it is doing for white is it is gaining the central space. White is having the chance to play pawn to d5 and attack. And if you will see in terms of black is solid, black is having the bishop pair. Okay, but again, like there are plus and minuses for both the sides, so this position is equal again. You can play this from both the sides and expect all three results. Okay, so this was the third variation. Now let's go back and now let's look at the fourth variation. This is known as Lasker variation. So it starts with the move pawn to d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, bishop e7, pawn e3, castles, knight f3, and then again the move pawn to h6. But here bishop goes back on the h4, then knight to e4, bishop takes, queen takes, cd5, knight c3 first, because if you will take again then knight can take. So bc3, ed5, queen to b3, rook d8, c4, dc4, bishop c4, knight c6, bishop back to e2 because there was threat of this knight to a5 and forking bishop and queen. So then pawn to b6, castling by white, bishop to b7. Okay, here you can see again white is having good influence in the center, but it's just the matter of time. Black can play pawn to c5 and neutralize this. This is a very strong bishop that black is having and he can use it. Then again in terms of white, this queen is active, knight is active, rook can easily come into the play and target this c pawn. So again, like there are many things going on and you can definitely go for this line. It's equal for both the sides. Okay, now let's go back and let's look at the last, that is the fifth variation of this video. Then other five variations we will discuss in the next video, that is the part 2. It starts with the move pawn to d4, d5. Let me just tell you the name. This is Cambridge Springs variation. So then c4, e6, knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, and here the move is knight b2, d7. Then it continues with knight f3, pawn c6, pawn to e3, queen a5, knight d2, bishop to b4, queen c2, pawn e5, then knight to b3 attacking the queen. So queen back to c7, then bishop e2, dc4, bishop c4, castling by both the sides, bishop back to d6, h3, a6. Here you can see there is this tension between these two pawns, but both the players are expecting the other one should take first. Why? Because if black takes, then white can put his knight here, and if white takes, same thing, black can put his knight there in the center. So there is tension and lot of moves going on, lot of things are there. Again, this position is equal, and if you are really dynamic player, then you will be able to handle it so well. From white and black side both, it's going to be a very dynamic game. Currently the position is equal and there are very high chances that this game would end in a result rather than a draw, because it happens, like we have seen it so many times, that usually when there is lot of dynamic going on, there is a result of the game because one player tends to do mistake and then the other player takes the advantage. And this is the thing about the dynamic variations, that uh, if one goes wrong, then other can easily take the advantage. There is no way or very little chance of the comeback. Okay, so hope you have enjoyed this video. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more such videos.